It is time for episode number 2 of my running diaries, and today we are at the Crabtree Creek Trail, that's a mouthful to say, to knock out a few outdoors miles. I've been running on the treadmill for the past few months really, so it is time to put my legs to the test and see how they do outside. I'm excited to see how my pace goes and see if the cross training is making any sort of difference. Some people say that the treadmill is actually harder than running outside and vice versa, so we'll see what happens. It is sunny outside, it's a little bit cooler, but I'm excited to see how it feels to run outside because it has been so long. But this is a really pretty flat trail, so it's not going to be too challenging, so I can at least put my speed to the test and see how it goes. But I thought for this episode of Running Diaries, I would go over how I try to mentally beat running whenever the miles get really tough. So to me, running is just as mental as it is physical. And there are a lot of things you can do to kind of trick your brain to get yourself through the really hard miles. And so I thought I'd share that with you guys today. Some of these things might not work for you as they work for me and vice versa. So take what you want from what I'm telling you guys today, but I think it's super helpful to have some mental tricks in your back pocket because sometimes running is really just about getting your brain to believe that you can do it and keep yourself distracted from realizing how hard the run actually is. So first things first, let's knock out this run outside. I think I might try to aim for 4 to 5 miles. We'll see what happens. It could be less, it could be a little further. We'll just wing it and see how it goes. And then we'll sit down and chat about all of my mental tricks to get through those hard runs. All right, y'all, let's go ahead and knock out this run. All right, we're at 2.5 miles. So I think we'll try to get to 4. So I'm gonna turn back around and come back and see what we're at. All right, we just hit 4 miles. We did it. Yay. Okay, let's see what our pace was. All right, so average pace 9:26. Distance 4 miles, time 38 minutes. Not too shabby, we did it. All right, so we got the run done. Got 4 miles in the run bank, and it actually was not too terrible. It's a lot warmer once you start sweating and, getting further into the run, but we did it, and I'm so excited to get an outside run in. I've been really dying to get outside, and this week's temperatures could not be better. It's crazy though, because it was snowing last week, so we're in spring this week. Last week we were in the dead of winter, but anyways, so I figured for today's running diaries that we could go over some of the things that I like to tell myself to mentally get through a run. So like I said before, I feel like it's so much more mental than it is physical sometimes with running, especially on the days where your motivation just is not there and you have to really tap into the discipline. So my first tip would be to break the run into smaller segments. So what I mean by that is, instead of trying to say like, I have 4 to 5 miles to run, break it up into, let me just run 1 mile and then see how I feel. Let me run to the next mile and see how I feel about that. Or even down to like signs. Sometimes I'll tell myself, if I can run to this stop sign, I'll be okay. And then I can try to get to the next stop sign and then to the next one. Hopefully that kind of makes sense, but as long as you can break it into bite-sized runs, it makes all the difference, especially the further you get into running and especially the longer runs you have on your to-do list. All right, for tip number 2, I would say to remember your mantras. A lot of people have different mantras that help them get through the runs. Some of mine are run for those who can't. And so I just repeat that to myself, especially whenever my legs are getting really tired, my breathing is getting heavier, I'm just exhausted. I remind myself to run for those who can't. So I have to be thankful every single day that I can get out, move my body, and I'm able to run. And so I'm so grateful for that. I know a lot of people don't have the ability, so it's just such a good reminder. And it really helps your mind get into the mindset that you should be grateful to be able to get out for a run, so run for those who can't. Some people have all kinds of different ones. Run the mile you're in, I can do hard things, all sorts of different ones. And you can even buy little bracelets. I used to have some bracelets that would have mantras on them. Some people write them on their wrist, anything to help you remember that mantra to help you get through your run. All right, for tip number 3, I would say to focus on your breathing. So something I like to try to do, especially when I'm running outside, is to take 2 breaths in through my nose pretty quick and then exhale through my mouth. So that just helps kind of regulate your heart rate. If you feel like you're having higher heart rates during your run, you can try to regulate it by really controlling your breathing. So some people like to take 1 big breath in through their nose and then 1 big breath out. It's just whatever works for you, but mine is usually take 2 breaths in through my nose pretty quickly and then a really long, slow exhale. And I just keep doing that over and over again until I feel myself calming down. Tip number 4, I would say, is to remember why you're running. So some people have reasons for health. You're running to, lose weight. You're running to help your heart health. Some people have it just to mentally relieve the stress. Just all sorts of different reasons why. And you always want to remember your why, especially on the days when you really don't want to get outside. Don't forget to remind yourself why you're doing it. Hopefully you're running because you actually enjoy it. You're not doing it as any sort of punishment, but you actually enjoy it. And so remind yourself why you want to be doing it, and that will help you get out the door. I promise. It is the hardest thing to just get right out the door, but if you remind yourself why you're doing it, it will make all the difference. To go along with that, I like to dedicate a mile to somebody or something. So especially whenever I ran my marathon, I dedicated all 26 miles to a certain thing or a certain someone to help me break up the run. It really helps bring back your focus whenever you're running and you're telling yourself why you're doing this mile, who you're doing it for. It just really helps trick your mind into focusing on that versus how tired you are and how exhausted you are. So your why and dedicate your miles are a huge, huge help mentally to get through the really hard runs. Okay, and that brings us to the next tip, which is going to be to distract your mind and play mind games with yourself while you're on your run by having a playlist to go to. So you can have any sort of pump up playlist, any sort of, distance playlist. You can time it by how many miles you have versus how fast you run. You can even search on Spotify or Pandora for all sorts of different playlists to help you get through your run. That will seriously work wonders to help distract you while you're running. So I like to listen to audiobooks. I think I talked about it in a previous vlog. I like to listen to podcasts. The one by Allie on the Run is usually my favorite running podcast. There's a few others, one by Des Linden and Kara Goucher, that I like to go to. And then there's a few others that you can search through that you might like better, but it will help distract your mind for sure whenever you're on those hard runs. So a podcast, an audio book, maybe challenge yourself to read a few chapters for your run and say, like, for every run, I'm gonna at least knock out 2 chapters. So anything like that to help distract you will seriously help so much. Also, I like to have a distraction of maybe listening to a uplifting podcast. So I like the Jamie Kern Lima podcast. It's just something, or Mel Robbins is another favorite. Those are just things that really help motivate you whenever you really don't have the motivation to get out the door and knock out your run. It is truly like a mile in, you're like, okay, I'm happy I'm doing this. I'm doing this for me. I'm taking the time for me, and this is what makes me happy. So any sort of audio that you can listen to, I like to, usually on the treadmill, I'll knock out YouTube, audiobooks, podcasts, or anything like that, just to help distract your mind while you're on the run. Whether it's outside or on the treadmill, either one will definitely help you get through those hard runs. Last but not least, you can find different playlists on Spotify that will track your cadence to help you focus on your speed and help you get through the miles at the pace that you want to. So I'll list a few down in the description box below, but they're very helpful. I've listened to a few of them before, and you can always go to the running store and try to figure out what your cadence should be based on your current pace, your current ability and endurance. But there are playlists that a lot of people don't know about that are on Spotify and probably other platforms too. But they just help you track your runs and help you keep in a steady pace to help you cover the distance at the pace for you. So I hope that these tips help you guys with getting through your hard runs. I definitely like to tap into a little bit of everything on the runs whenever I really don't feel motivated. So hopefully these can help you get through your next hard run. But if you guys have any sort of motivation or any sort of tips that you guys like to tap into, feel free to drop them in the comments down below. I would love to hear how you get through your hard workouts, because I know everybody has their own preferences. So I hope this helped you guys. Thanks for tuning in for another episode of my Running Diaries. I hope you enjoyed it. Don't forget to give it a thumbs up and subscribe if you're new so that you don't miss any of my updates. All right, y'all, I will catch you in the next video. Bye.